Pathfinders ngiyanibingelela kulonyaka ka2021 icamp yethu and kulonyaka unyaka ohlukile kuma camp esike sawenza sabanawo but onyaka uhlukile icamp esinayo ngenxa yeCovid kodwa kunjalo siyambonga uNkulunkulu ukuthi usiphile noma mhlambe uye osiphelele icebo lokuthi siqhubeke nayo icamp noma izikhathi zeCovid zinzima kangaka kodwa kunjalo ngiyabonga ngiphinde ngibonge nabazali benu ukuthi abavumile ukuthi masifika nalombono uNkulunkulu esipha wona bavuma abazali bawomukela umbono ukuthi sikhempe kanje. This is a visual camp ke esizoqala ngayo sizoqala kanje bese siphinde siyaqhubeka kule visual camp yethu. It will be divided into 3 parts. Iphathi yokuqala kuzoba iphathi ya Mr Nderela ezoba ekhuluma ngomlilo ezobe esichazela uzoba enza i-theory yomlilo ezophela ngesabatha ntambama la sobenza khona i-practical yomlilo sibe sipheka ukudla okwahlukene sikupheka ngomlilo bese kuphinde kulandela uSister Ntombi phakathi ozobe esifundisa nayo i-practical ne-theory ye-first aid ngoba on the 12th ngesonto sizohamba intaba siyohike uma ngabe siyohike fele sihike sibe sinawo umqondo noma ulwazi olunzulu nge-first aid ngoba zikhona izinto ezimbi noma ezingasivelela kuma vele uma sibe nama challenges ekuhikeni sibe sazi ukuthi iziphi izinto okumele sisebenzise. Esinye ispeaker sethu sesithathu kuzoba uSister uSister Mbatha uzoba esifundisa ngebackpacking nayo ezosisiza ngesonto uma ngabe sesiya evula intaba siya kwi-hiking ngoba fele sazi ukuthi kuma bags ethu luhlobo luni lwezinto noma ama materials noma impahla okumele sizipheke and ihlobo luni lwezimpahla okumele sigqoke ngoba uma uyohike gqoki noma kanjani but kunempahla eziqondene nayo i-hiking. Sizoqhubeka kanjalo mase kuthi ngesabatha sizoba necamp siqhubeke nayo kodwa izobe ila eBlessed Hope izobe ilive sobe sinezipika zakhona ntambama ko bese sibuye iphela ntambama ngalo isabatha kodwa angeke silale ngoba siyawazi umthetho we-social distancing. Ngokusizwa inkosi abantu abami ngithi siyabonga ngiyathemba ukuthi icamp yethu izohamba kahle ize igcine ngesonto ngoba iyophelela evula intaba. Ngiyabonga.
Slow march. 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, lift, wheel, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, right, wheel, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, all check, 1, 2. Pathfinders attention. Pathfinders salute. Salute. Official salute. We shall sing the national anthem as we raise the national flag. We shall sing the AY song as we raise the AY flag. The Pathfinder song as we raise the Pathfinder flag.
We are adventurers, at home, at school, at play. We are adventurers. We're learning every day to be honest, kind, and true, to be like Jesus through and through. We are adventurers. We are adventurers, at home, at school, at play. We are adventurers. We're learning every day to be honest, kind, and true, to be like Jesus through and through. We are.
Pathfinders order arms.
As the director of the Blessed Hope Pathfinder, as the director of a Blessed Hope Pathfinder Club, I declare this 2021 camp open.
Once you arrive at the campsite, you'll want to choose the best place to raise your tent. Look for a nice flat spot without any roots or rocks. Avoid hilly sites where water could trickle down and collect into a pool under your tent. Also, be sure to keep a good distance from your fire pit. In your tent bag, you should have the tent body, the tent fly, some poles, pegs, and ideally a ground sheet and some guy lines. If you have a ground sheet, place it over your selected location. Next, roll out the tent and line up your door in the desired position. After assembling the tent poles, insert one end of a pole into the grommet on the corner of the tent body. Then work your way across the tent by securing the poles using the clips. Now, attach the end of the pole on the opposite side of the tent to the grommet. This will raise the tent body and is easier when performed by two people. With the first pole attached to the tent, repeat the same steps for the second pole. Some tent models might use a sleeve or a combination of sleeves and clips, but the process remains the same. Now that your tent is up, you will want to secure it to the ground. Most tents will have nylon webbing straps that loop or have grommet at their edges. Place a peg through each of the nylon straps along the edge of the tent and pull them away from the tent so that the floor is stretched tight. Now, push the peg into the ground at a 45-degree angle. This will ensure your tent stays secure in windy conditions. You will now want to attach the tent fly. It will keep you dry in case of rainy weather. Toss the fly over the tent like a blanket. Make sure that the front of the tent fly lines up with the entrance of the tent. Most flies will attach to the poles of the tent body or to the edges of the tent where the poles are attached. Once the fly is attached, you are ready to move in your bedding and other gear. When it's time to leave, you'll want to take everything apart in the reverse order. Make sure to keep all your gear dry and organized, and pack it all back into your tent bag. Once everything is packed, do a walk around your campsite to ensure nothing has been forgotten. Also, make sure to pick up any garbage you find and leave your campsite as nice as possible. It's part of the camper's ethic to leave the site in good condition for future visitors.
Jesu Kristu, siyabonga ke ukuba khona komoya ongcwele. Sibonge ukuthi waba nathi kuze sifike lana. Silana Jehova camp yama Pathfinders. Njengamanje Jehova sizofunda ke wasinikeza ulwazi olujulile. Sizofunda namhlanje ngendaba yomlilo. Abantwana bazothola ulwazi lokuthi masibasa umlilo silapha eCamp kumele kuhambe kanjani. Ukuze kungabi khona umuntu olimalayo noma oshiswayo. Sibonge Jehova ukuthi uzoba nathi ube nepresentation le ibe very helpful kubo bonke abantu abayilalelile manje abayizwayo nalabo bakhona. Egameni lika Jesu Kristu siyabonga, amen. Sibonge kakhulu. Our session begins now, and before I start showing you how to make fire and probably their types, ngizoqala ke bazalwane bancane ukuthi ngisho ukuthi umthetho wokubasa umlilo uhamba kanjani. Asiqale lapho, because fire is so important at a campsite. Because it is our fuel, it is our energy. With the fire, we are able to cook our food. Angithi siyapheka, right? And you know, food and eating will be one of the most pronounced activities at a campsite, ne? Right? You need umlilo ukuthi nikwazi ukupheka. Sometimes in the evenings, it's very uncomfortable. Temperatures might go down. Even during the day, you would also need fire to keep yourselves warm. All right? So, what is it that we need to know about the fire out there when we are camping? Number one, whenever you're going to start a fire, make sure that you are away from trees and any other objects. The minimum distance you could be away from any object or a tree should be 10 feet. 10 feet translates into 3 meters. That's the minimum distance. If you have a building, make sure you are far away from the building. You are 3 meters away from the building. Then you must make sure that you avoid hanging branches of trees over your fire. There are some types of trees that are very flammable. Ayashesha ukuvuta uma ukhona umlilo. Talk about your pine trees and cypress trees. Ungathi akhandwe neparaffin. So you make sure ukuthi your flames would not touch any tree anywhere near that fire. So that is very important. Distance from any object, even the grass, right? The other thing about fire is that do not make your fire on top of flammable objects, such as grass. You can look at the place that I've chosen. I'm far away from the grass because if the grass or leaves or cardboard could take the fire away without you noticing, especially the leaves. they can easily be, what do you call them? You call them floating embers. A leaf could just go up into the air and flies. It flies and lands dozens of yards away from you. Without you realizing it, there's fire behind you because there's a lot of grass. How did it go? How did it start? It's because of the position you chose. It must be clean of such things. Right. Then when you are making fire, do not use what we call accelerants. What are accelerants? Your paraffin, your petrol, your diesel, some say gasoline, and all these things, kerosene, all these liquids, we call them accelerants. Some would want to use them because they are fast. You know, you just pour a little here, you ignite, and then there's fire. But we should never use such at any campsite because we might find ourselves in trouble with fires that we may not be able to control. All right. Then, what's this? It's a bucket, ne? Imagine it is full of water. You always need a fire extinguisher. Before you start the fire, ask yourself, do we have an extinguisher? Anything to put out the fire if it happens to be out of control. You need to put the fire out. So make sure there's a bucket full of either water or what? Who knows? Sand. All right. Sand is a very good fire extinguisher. Once the fire starts running away, you can pour sand and it dies immediately. All right. Sometimes if you have your resources well, you could also have a fire extinguisher. That would be good. You must know how to operate it as well. Right. But there's my bucket of water or sand inside there. And I'm going to be making my fire here. Fire is used for two basic things, just to keep ourselves warm, to light the campsite, right, as well as to cook. Okay, so the types of fires that we are going to talk about, they could be for cooking or they could be just for lighting the place and warming ourselves up. Right, I'm going to look at the council fire. Who knows the other name for the council fire? Council fire? Fires are named after their functions, their purpose, right? Or the way they look, all right? The way they look, then they get their name from that. We will talk about council fire, and I'm going to talk about hunter's fire, and time permitting, the star fire. I may not be able to look at many others. There's TP fire. What other fire did I leave out? Anyone? Besides the council, the star fire, the hunter's fire, any other? Reflector fire. Anyone else with a different type of fire? Okay, it's fine. Let's focus on these three that I've spoken about. So what do I need? I need this. What do you call this? Wood. Twigs. Okay, what's the technical name when we are camping? It's a what? This is a tinder bundle. It's the twigs, like you're saying. It helps you start the fire. Why? Because they are so thin, they can quickly catch fire, and then they spread the flame. Right. So it's tinder bundle. And this, don't say twigs again. Branch. Branch. Okay. The technical term for this one, it's not that thin, but it also helps to spread the flame after the tinder bundle. So we call it the kindling wood. All right, the kindling wood. What is to kindle? It's to start the fire. Right. And then, of course, we have our wood. Right. These ones are for demonstration. That's why they are so cut and measured, you know. But remember, when you need firewood, you just go into the forest, you get dry wood. Right. Let's start with the council fire. Make sure your ground is leveled nicely, right? Now, the council fire gets its name from the meetings that the Native Americans used to have. They would come and sit down, maybe in a room or just outside. So they would make the council fire. It is also called the pyramid fire because of the way it looks, as you shall see. And it is also called the crisscross fire. All those names, they come from the way it looks and the purpose. Right, I will explain why they called it cancel fire and why they preferred the cancel fire. So, when I'm making the cancel fire, I would need probably my first 2 logs, right, that I'm going to place down, parallel to each other, right, nicely like that. Okay, and then, like I said, this type of fire is called crisscross. So you start crossing your fire, your logs or your wood, but before that, let's put our, what do we call this? Tinder bundle, right? We place it there, all right? And then you make sure you also help it with what? Huh? Kindling wood, ne? Kindling wood, that will help to spread the flame, all right? There we are. I'm sure my tinder bundle and the kindling wood should be enough now. Now I can build the fire now. There we are. As I place my wood, right, I must make sure that they are well spaced. A distance of 2.5 centimeters will do. Why do we need that 2.5 centimeters between the wood? Who knows? Yes? Huh? Why do we need the oxygen? They are so that the fire can spread. Now I'm crisscrossing. You see that? This is what you mean by crisscrossing. Okay? Crisscrossing. There we are. Right. I can go up again as far as I can, as far as the wood permits, and also the crowd that will be around the fire. If there are 2 people, there's no need to build a high pyramid, right? But if we are 20, then we need a considerable amount of wood. There we are. As you can see, it's growing up, crisscrossing, and it is tapering. It is growing like this, like a pyramid. Okay, right. Then after that, all you need to do is to have your matchstick or your lighter. When you go camping, you must always have this. You don't want to ask each other, where's the matches? But I told you to take it. Oh, but you know. So make sure that you have yours. Even if no one assigned you to do it, just carry matchstick. It will come in handy. You will never know. Right, then, we are not going to light it today, all right, but this is it. Now, what are the advantages of this fire? 1, when the fire is building, it's growing, the flame is coming up. What is good about this fire is that it falls on its own, right? As it crumbles, as the wood is burning, everything falls inside, all right? Why is that a good thing? It is going to make what we call a bed of coal, a very thick bed of coal, so that if you want to do your cooking, you know the coal is there. It's not spread all over. All right, this fire can go on for some time, burning and warming up and lighting and all that, right? Before you have your coal, and then you can start cooking, baking, or whatever that you want to be baking. All right. So this fire was used at the council so that it would keep them warm for a long time. And it's very important that you find the correct type of wood that is going to give you coal that will last. Some types of wood would last for a short time. Before you know it, it's just ashes, it's finished. Your soft wood, your pine, your cypress, and so forth. But the hard wood would last longer. Like your mahogany, here in Africa we have mahogany and many other indigenous hardwood. Right, so that was our council fire. I can imagine the fire coming up. Right, so it's called crisscross because the wood is going crisscrossing. It's called a pyramid because it tapers as it goes up. Right, and it gives you a lot of coal. Right, because of time, let me dismantle this one. And let me talk about the hunter's fire. Without wasting time, the hunter's fire, let's start from exactly there. As the name suggests, this is a fire that hunters would want to make out there. For what? What do they use it for? Hunter's fire. Yeah, basically it's for cooking, all right? Basically it's for cooking. They might also use it to scare animals and all that, but basically it is for cooking. So what is important about the hunter's fire is that you must make it with your pan or pot in mind, the size of it. These bottom logs that, or they call them, actually they call them the top logs, all right? Not bottom logs, the top logs. There we are. Your tinta is there, your kindling wood is there, and then you make these two logs close enough to allow your pot. Let's imagine this was my pot, okay? You don't put plastic on fire to cook, okay? But we are also going to experience that you can use a plastic container to boil water and to boil your eggs. We will do it, all right, at this camp. Then you just make sure that it can sit, your pot can sit on the two logs. Once that is okayed, then it's fine. You can now make your fire. You make your fire in between these two logs, all right, and make it burn. Right, then you can put your pot there once the flame is coming up. It's very simple. Hunter's fire is done, right? Then you can have your pancake or whatever game meat that you might have caught in the forest. All right. That is hunter's fire. It's very simple, used for cooking, and that's all. Right. Do you have anyone with a question about any of these two that I've spoken about? Right. I will quickly move on to last but not least, because of our time. This one is also a cooking fire, and it's very common. We use it in our homes, all right? So let's have our tinta bundle there at the center. This one is called the star fire. The star fire. Why is it called the star fire? It is because, who wants to tell us? Why is it called a star fire? Anyone? Oh, let me have someone else. Anyone? Why do we call it a star fire? Okay, tell us.
I think it's because it's shaped like a star.
It is shaped like a star. All right. So I must create a fire that is shaped like star. A star. All right. So there we are. That's how you put your wood. Okay, it could be 3-pronged like that. It could be 4. There's no problem as long as you can see a star. All right, as long as you can see a star. Right, you remember your Zulu pots. You know, Ibodele Zulu. Yes, 3 legs. To allow you to put, to have 3 spaces for you to poke in your wood. Now, what is significant about this one is that it doesn't give you a lot of labor. You don't need to be cutting the wood that much, right? You can bring a 3-meter log or whatever a piece of wood, put it there. As it burns here, you push it in, you push it in, you push it in. The only thing that you need to be careful about is that as you do your cooking moving around, don't kick the wood. Otherwise, you spill over your pot, or now uzolimala uzosha. Angithi? You just need to be careful with your movements around the star fire. So basically, it is for cooking. We use it in our rondos, in our homes, many times. Some use 3 boulders or stones. You put one there, you put another there, you put another there. What would that be for? Why these 2 boulders? They become your what? They become your stove on which the pot sits. Angithi? Yes. Otherwise, this is it. Now, some would say you can have a fire ring right round. Iphakeme kanje. Bese, your logs will be popped up this side. As they burn, you don't need to push them in. They are just crumbling, and they go in and they go in. Just like that, once you do your cooking. All right. Now, when you are done, as I conclude, when you are done with your fire, remember, you don't turn your back on the fire and leave it burning. you have to put out your fire. And please, do it deliberately. Make sure you are all focusing on it and you pour a lot of water on it and make sure that it's dead. When you think it is dead, still don't go away. Take your shovel, your spade, turn over the coal, pour more water. They even say if you touch the ashes with your hand and it's still feeling warm, then douse it with more water. To douse is to pour a lot of water until it's flowing, because it is very important that the fire is completely out when you leave that place. And then you can take your firewood away and pack it nicely. Don't leave everything, lying all over like debris. Okay, right. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Pathfinders, I want to believe that when it comes to practicals, we are going to enjoy more of this, because we will be doing it and we'll be baking and all that. May God bless you as you continue with this camping. Thank you very much.
Good day, boys and girls. It is very exciting to know that we are going out on a camp. It is very exciting, especially during these times when we have been kept indoors by the COVID-19 pandemic. Now that we're going out and we're going to be seeing God's nature, it's very good. I hope you are all excited about this. As we are going to be camping and also going out hiking, we thought that we need to learn about how to keep safe whilst we're out there. Because even though we have planned very well and all the intentions are good, and we have prayed that we come back all in one piece, but sometimes accidents happen and then we need to do something so that we come back safely. But before we start, we are going to have a short prayer. Shall we close our eyes? Our Heavenly Father, thank you for the boys and girls that you have put in our hands to mentor. This morning, Father, we are here. We are thanking you that you have made this day possible and all the preparations you have put in order. We are taking them to your hand so that whatever they are going to be doing, please bless them and please grow them in spirit and in everything so that they are comprehensively your children. In Jesus' name we ask, amen. Now we're going to be doing then first aid aspects, especially on hiking, because at the end of the camp we'll go out hiking, and then we looked at what is it that may befall you whilst we are camping there. And because it is now spring, we thought that there might be now snakes. They are out of hibernation, and so they are one of the threats that we're going to come across out there. So we are going to look at first aid on snake bites and also on fainting, because that's also a possibility, on bleeding in case anyone falls and has a break of the skin and is bleeding, and then also on shock in case one is really severely injured and falls into shock, so that we know what to do when such happens. We all know that when you go out anywhere or when you embark on a camp or you assemble, you must have a first aid box. And the first aid box is your preparation for what may happen. Now, it is a must that you have a first aid box. It's also a must that you have contact numbers of the nearest hospital and emergency services. And also, in the team, you must have a trained first aider, a person who will know what to do in case anything happens. Now we're going to look at snake bites. In this area, we've got a few snakes. I know that you have done your homework and you look at what type of snakes are here, the puff adders and stuff, and you know that some are more poisonous than others. But then in case you are bitten by a snake, you must know that the effects of the snake bite, the venom of the snake, they vary according to the snake, the type of snake. And as then they vary, then so is the management of a snake bite. So the first thing that you do when then one of your team members has been bitten by a snake, you protect that person. That is, you take them away from the place where there is still the snake. But you take them safely without a hassle. You don't become flustered and excited. But you also must also be safe as you're doing that. And if you can, you identify the snake. If you can just try to remember the color of the snake and the features of all the features of the snake. And if you've got a cell phone, maybe you can just take a picture. It would help so that when then emergency services people come and when they come to the hospital, they know which snake so that they know the appropriate treatment for the snake. You immobilize the person. It means that the person must be still down. We mustn't keep on walking. But as we do that, you carefully remove the victim from the immediate area of the threat of the snake, and you take a photograph and you keep the victim calm. Because if you are excited, you all, I know good to get tools, but you need to keep calm, because when you are excited and you're also afraid and you show that you are afraid, then adrenaline will rush in and there's going to be accelerated blood flow in the patient's blood, and then the person who has been bitten by a snake will be affected easily, because then the venom is going to travel throughout the body. So you must keep the victim and yourself calm, and everybody around you calm. You call for help and you arrange transport to take the patient to the nearest hospital or emergency services. And you make sure that you keep the bitten limb in a functional position, which means that it must not be in a crooked position. It must be in the position, a normal position, but it must be below the victim's heart, which means that if, for instance, I'm beating on the hand, you cannot then take my hand and elevate it like this or put it over my head or above the head, because then blood is going to flow easily towards the heart. But it must be below the heart area, the level of the heart in the body. You don't give the patient anything to eat or drink. So I know that you are going to be rushing for your bags and taking out water, but don't do that, especially if the drinks that you're having have got maybe contain alcohol, because alcohol is a vasodilator and it will make the venom absorb easily. And you don't administer stimulants or pain medications to the victim. Things that have got caffeine like Coca-Cola, you don't give to the patient in tea, because that also is a vasoconstrictor which accelerates blood flow towards the heart. You remove any constricting clothing or items. Like, for instance, if the patient is wearing a ring, you remove the ring so that when the swelling happens, then that ring will constrict blood flow. So immediately you remove the watches, the wrist watches, and maybe if it's on the feet, the shoes, footwear, shoelaces, and sometimes you tie your pants very tightly around your legs. You remove all that and you loosen everything around it. And then you keep the victim as still as possible. Still means that no unnecessary movement, so that there isn't an acceleration of blood flow. And you don't incise the bitten site. And you don't attempt to clean the area with any type of chemicals. Sometimes we rush to say, let's wash off the venom, let's take some water. Don't do anything like that, because it may further aggravate the venom traveling throughout the body. And you seek medical attention as quickly as possible. You keep the area of the, you remember to keep the area of the bite below the heart level. Remain still and calm. And you cover the bite with a clean, loose-fitting bandage. This means that you are not going to constrict it like we are bandaging a person who is bleeding. You just put it loosely just to cover the wound, but you don't constrict it. And then what is of importance here, as I've said, that I've emphasized, is that try to identify the snake, but safely. If the snake has run away, don't look for the snake. If the snake is still around and is still in your direction, you don't try even taking a picture. But if you can take a picture or identify the snake, it is going to make things easier. You seek medical help immediately. You do not pick up the snake or try to wrap it up or kill it. And even if you have killed the snake, don't pick up the snake, because even a dead snake, the apparently dead snake, will bite you. And you don't apply a tourniquet. You don't cut across the bite mark. You don't try to suck the venom out of the patient. You know, some people say you suck it out with your mouth. You don't do that. And you don't apply ice. You do not immerse the wound area in water. And you do not give drinks containing alcohol and caffeine. And it is better to avoid giving any drink unless you need to give. If you need to give a drink, just give water only to the patient to keep the patient safe. So that is it about snake bites. When we meet on Sabbath, when we look at our first aid boxes, we are going to look at the pictures of the common snakes that we find in our area. Now, we are going to move to our next topic, which is fainting. We thought we should put fainting here because fainting is common, especially as you are going to be walking. You know, you'll be doing different distances, and it's going to be, the prediction on the weather is that it's going to be hot, and then some of us may, along the way, feel faint. So now what is fainting? Fainting is a self-correcting temporary form of shock, and which is often it's a result of just blood draining towards the feet, like when you have been standing for a long time. So at the start of the walk, like when you're hiking, you will not get people fainting, but as you walk up and walking a long distance, then some people, because the blood has been draining towards the feet and there's less blood going to the brain and the vital organs, then you might find some people who are going to faint. The serious problem about fainting, as you remember that I said fainting is self-correcting, it's not a serious problem as such, but the serious problem is that a person might get injured when they fall, because when they faint, they become temporarily unconscious. So when they fall, they cannot balance up or choose how they fall or where they fall. So the injury that may happen will be the threat. And stressful conditions may cause the fainting. So as you are going up hiking, try to be supportive one to another so that no one is stressed. And when people are tired, try to have a plan for how they're gonna rest and not be stressed. So what do you do if a person faints, or when a person feels like she's going to faint? You lay the person down. You remember I said blood has drained to the feet. So when you lie the people down, like the person is horizontal, then that person, blood is going to flow into the vital organs, and the person then will going to recover. You elevate the feet so that there is more blood going towards the vital organs. And you loosen any tight clothing, like the belts around and anything that is constricting. And you maintain an open airway, which means that when you lie the person down, you tilt the chin and you make sure that there is nothing that is occluding breathing. In a few minutes, then the person recovers, and then the person will be okay. If the person then, you are then going to look at why the person has fainted. If the person fainted because maybe they were bleeding, then you're going to treat it as such. If maybe the person is having a heat stroke, then you're going to treat it as such. And maybe it's going to be dehydration, then you'll hydrate the person, and then it's going to pass. And then on the next topic, say now the person who was fainting fell, or maybe someone just stumbled and fell on a stone and suffered a severe laceration, and then that person starts to bleed. And then if you allow the bleeding to continue, then the person is going to faint, or the person might fall into unconsciousness or may fall into shock. So if you see that the person is bleeding heavily, you press hard onto the wound to stop the bleeding. Now, on pressing hard onto the wound, you take into cognizance what has caused the falling. If maybe the person has fallen on some broken glass, you are not going to press in case there are fragments of glass. But if it's just a clean wound, then you can press it and occlude the bleeding. If an arm or leg is cut, you elevate either the arm or the limb so that there isn't a lot of blood flow going towards that limb. And then you cover with a clean pad and apply a bandage. So you put a clean pad from your first aid box, and then you bandage the wound. And then you check if the bleeding continues. If the bleeding continues, you are going to see the blood oozing over the dressing that you have put on. You have then to add another dressing and another bandage. But you do not remove the first dressing, because when you remove it, then you are going to cause more bleeding. But you put it over the bleeding, the bandage that is already existing, and you cover it. If then you have to bandage like a hand or a limb, you must check the toes constantly. Check the toes and the fingers, because maybe when you are pressing on the bleeding area, you might constrict blood flow to the extremities. So you check if the person can feel, and also if the color of the toes, that they should be pink, and also the fingers must be pink. If then they change color, you have to release the bandage a bit so that circulation may continue. Now, if there is severe bleeding, like you see that a pool of blood, which maybe when you estimate maybe like 5 cups or more, then you seek medical aid. You take the person to hospital. And if then it's not severe, you will still seek medical aid, so that because the person was injured out there, they might be exposed to tetanus and they might need tetanus injections. So the wound then will be cleaned properly and then stitched up. And that is about the bleeding. You must always be prepared so that the person does not bleed out. And now the last one is shock. I hope that no one will get into shock on your hike, because that is going to really shake you when you see a person lying there really shocked. The causes of shock will be mostly it's when a person maybe is in extreme pain, or when a person experiences fluid loss, like when you are bent, you've got pain and you lose plasma, and also when you experience bad news, you like frightened, you can get into shock. But the most common cause of shock is blood loss. So as we're talking about how to stop bleeding, we are saying as you stop the bleeding, you are preventing the shock, because when a person bleeds out, then they get into shock. And shock is often a life-threatening emergency. So what you do when a person gets into shock, you reassure the person and comfort the person so that they are not overly excited, angesabi. And then you send for help, or you call for emergency services. You ensure that the airway is clear and check for breathing, and you place the victim on a recovery position. Now on Sabbath afternoon, when we're looking at our first aid box, we're going to be looking at the different bandages, how you bandage a person, and also the recovery position. We're going to demonstrate that. But the person lies on the side with the head tilted, and you have to position the person in such a way that she can breathe easily. You attempt to stop the obvious bleeding, as we have alluded in the last talk, and you cover the victim with a jacket or a blanket, but you don't cover with too thick a blanket so that then they are hot, because if they are too hot, they are going to fall into further shock. And you don't give a drink, but you can just give like small, you moisten the lips and the tongue of the person, because it will be dry when they are shocked. And you prepare for cardiopulmonary resuscitation. If the person then stops breathing due to the shock, you must be able to resuscitate. We'll also look at that then when we are looking at our emergencies on Sabbath, the practicals. And when the emergency services arrive, you give as much information as possible so that they are able to know what is the cause of the shock, because the treatment depends on what caused the shock. I hope that this information is going to arm us so that we do not run around in circles when we experience these emergencies. These are all emergencies that we can encounter when we are on our hike. Now, I said it is mandatory that you've got the emergency services numbers and the nearest hospital, and also you must have a first aid box. Now, your first aid box, I'm going to read this out because I want you to prepare so that when we meet on Sabbath, you know your first aid boxes must be ready. You must have in your first aid box that like the minimum contents. There's going to be other things, but these are the must-have. You must have a wound cleaner, which will be an antiseptic, and you must have swabs for cleaning wounds. You must have wool for padding, and you must have sterile gauze. Sterile gauze you'll put on the open wounds. It must be sterile because you mustn't infect the wounds. And then a pair of forceps, a pair of scissors, a set of small safety pins, triangular bandages, roller bandages, a roll of elastic adhesive, and a roll of non-allergic adhesive strips for the different bandages that you are going to be applying when you are there, and a packet of adhesive dressing strips, assorted sizes. And you have a first aid dressing, a dressing that is just ready that you can apply on a wound and just put a bandage over. And straight splints in case someone gets a fracture or breaks the arm or a limb or anywhere where you can immobilize that limb or arm. And pairs of gloves, different sizes, small, large, and medium. And you must have the CPR mouthpieces or similar devices, because when you are doing the CPR, you're gonna need those. So please prepare those for the Sabbath. And now, before we part, I'm going to give you an activity that you're going to prepare so that when we meet, I see that you are ready for your trip. The activity number 1, name 2 snakes found in the area where you are going to be hiking. 2 types of snakes that are found in the area where you'd be hiking. Write the name and phone number of the nearest hospital or emergency service provider. And then number 3, name 2 causes of shock. And number 3, tabulate the minimum requirements of your first aid box. This information is really going to help you, and I hope that we are going to give you handouts as we meet. Thank you, boys and girls. Let us pray. Siyabonga baba ukuthi ube nathi, sibonge Nkosi ukuthi uhlala unathi. Siyabonga baba ukuthi abantwana bethu bakhathalele, uyabathanda uNkulunkulu oyingcwele. Siyacela bani konke lolu lwazi Nkosi lubakhe uNkulunkulu oyingcwele, ubani esibephuma beya kwi-nature bahlangane nawe uNkulunkulu oyingcwele, babone ubukhulu bakho nobungcwele bakho, babone imvelo yakho, bakwazi Nkosi nokuphatha kahle Nkosi zonke izilwane osibekile Nkosi bephephile. Sicela konke lokho egameni lihlele Nkosi wethu Jesu Kristu kuze bengaphakade. Amen.
Ngiyanibingelela egameni lenkosi uJesu. Amen. Ngicela sivala amehlo. Baba uthandekayo, sicela ube phakathi kwethu. Kuthi wonke ama activities eswenzela abantwana bethu usibusise, ubusise nabazali. Kuthi konke sokwenza kuthandeke emehlweni akho kuze kube phakade. Amen. Namhlanje ngizokhuluma ngebackpacking, ngikhulume ngehiking. Ibackpacking sikhuluma ngoJolisaka. Abantu balazi ngalelo gama uJolisaka, la ufanele kufake khona izinto ozoyisebenzisa ekuhambeni. Ngoba izandla esikhathi esiningi kufanele zibe free ngoba suke sihamba kuphi emahlathini noma otshanini. Ngakho ke imvamisa masilokhuzana sibackpacker. Ngizocela abazali ngoba okwamanje imali azikho. singabasebenzisa lekolo ilokhuzana ikhwama lezi abaphatha ngazo incwadi ngoba nakho sobe senze ilokhuzana i-backpacking for a day. I-backpacking nayihlukene khona eyenyanga, eyeviki, eye-weekend, eyosuku. Mina ngizokhuluma nge-backpacking yani yosuku ukuthi uma sihamba siyohamba entabeni siyohike fanele kufakeni la into yosuku. La ku-backpacking the correct sikhwama sokuyohike nas lapha ofaka khona yonke imithwalo yakho yonke into yangena la. That is the correct one. Lokho kufaka emahlombe la ufake zonke izinto lapho uyayibopha nala uyayibopha wenzela ukuthi yonke weight ibe la emahlombe. Then ke la bese siphatha nanku mat usechazile kumamphakathi ukuthi kenzeka umntwana lapha alimale noma shawe inyoka. Yingakho sifunda ngama reptiles ngoba ama reptiles emaskempile masihike siyahlangana nabo ngoba suke siya ku-environment yakhona. Senzela ukuthi umntwana maselimele noma ubani sesiyawukhipha ke lo mat sikhipha no blanket. Ublanket uzobungenile la nomqamelo ngoba fanele umntwana mayiselimele umuntu omunye mayibhinyikile ungenwa na amakhazi sifake no blanket especially we leaders thina ngoba sobe sihamba ngama troops ngama group ngeke sishaya ujengo olude kodwa sobe sihamba ilita ama Pathfinder ilita ama Pathfinder amanye ama Pathfinder ama leaders asale egcineni senzela ukuthi uma kukhona inkinga abantwana abayitholayo thina as leaders ngemuva siyakwazi ukumsiza lo mntwana. Lana ke bese sifaka njengoba sesishilo ukuthi okuningi sikufaka la kuJolsaka wona Jolsaka wokukhempa ke lo esuphathayo right kulo Jolsaka siphathani lokho okukuyivala ngoba iweather ibuyishintshe ingakho uma uyoqala ukuhike iweather fanele siyazi lento igqoka ngendlela eyiningi mhlawumbe ilanga liyashisa wenzothi lingakushisa mhlawumbe ufuna ukuvala nentamo konke lokho uyakusebenzisa kukhona lapha ezitolo kushibhile kakhulu uyakuphatha uyakufaka la emthwaleni kodwa uyagqoka before sihambe bese uphatha lokho okuvikela izingalo ukuthi malishisa ilanga mhlawumbe ufake i-short sleeve. Siyaba encourage abantwana mabehamba bafaka ama long sleeve senzela ukuthi bangakrwebheki endleleni. Lokhu ke wenzela ukuthi ilanga maselishisa usuyakufaka la kuyakuvikela ngalesikhathi uhamba. Kukhona kuhamba kuyiset nako akusuyimali enkulu uyakufaka nako la emgodlagodlweni yakho bese ugcobisa ne-sunscreen. Seke sizwe abantu bathi sunscreen is not good kodwa ke ilanga mhlambe lishisa kakhulu ugcobiseke lezo ndawo obonayo zoba expose. Ingakho fanele sifaka ama pant amade nama long sleeve kodwa ayashisayo kodwa kuya ngeweather ukuthi iweather ithini. Uma kushisa kakhulu ufaka i-sunscreen kodwa mayingekho asikho isidingo ufaka ibhluku elide bese ufaka ufaka nama shirt ne-thermos ngoba iweather yiko kuma Pathfinder is an honor. Uyayiphatha uyifunda ukuthi njengoba sohike iweather izothini ngoba uzosuka la kushisa masihike endleleni seliyana. Ne-raincoat is important. Ikhona ke le raincoat le uthi uma uyigqokile ivulekithi nayilapha cishe ko-R9 ezokwazi ukuvikela nento zakho la ngemuva uyayifaka na i-raincoat nezinto zamakhaza. Uma kwenzeka ukuthi sihambe kahle ekuseni sesiyabuya kuyabanda khona ama-thermos noma ufaka iskipa ke ngaphakathi ngaphansi usifake la kwenza ukuthi masekushintsha iweather usuyakwazi ukugqoka. Bese uphatha nani ingane siyazi ke ziyathanda usuphatha nani nezibuko zakho usayifaka mhlawumbe ilanga ngoba masohike sihamba very early. Yingakho nje bengiphethe nejacket ngoba sisuka ekseni nali jacket yami ngilibophela la ekhalweni masekushisa ngenzela ukuthi masekushisa ngilibeke eceleni. Then ke usuyahamba usuphatha usuphatha imap. Soku-right ke manje ama Pathfinder i-technology sihambe kakhulu abantwana sebephatha amaseli othola ukuthi uzothi mawuvula lapha ugooglisha uyithola imap yendawo uthole nani necampus ezokutshela konke kukhona kuma-elethu manje sihamba ey'ntweni ey'phezulu kabi bese uphatha nesigubhu samanzi ngoba masihayikha amanzi they are very critical enesuke ekhaya udlile ekuseni ngoba sizowalka ey'ntabeni ngoba indawo ithi uphatha ini namanzi bese uphatha nomesi ukhona lo mesi wama-scout lo o-multi-knifed othola ukuthi kunespoon kunemfoloko kunani naloyo mese uyawuphatha nawo ube khona asawaphathi kama-headlamps khona-ke lesibani ithoshi esilifaka la uphatha lona kodwa seke sibona abantwana bey'phathela amaseli kodwa isandla faneke sibe free la umathosha waduli futhi lapha ey'tolo zama-hikers ufike ulithole futhi ithoshi lakho bese uphatha i-cigarette light kubalekile ubase ngoba kwi-cigarette light kubalekile uthola ukuthi endleleni mhlawumbe abantu basishile noma wena uphuma uhamba ngendlela yakho noma sesinenkinga mhlawumbe khona umntwana oselimele sesithatha utshani sifaka utshani la siyabuhlanganisa obomile nobumanzi sesiyashisa nge-cigarette light sekwenzeka intuthu laba abalapha kwibase sebeyakwazi ukubona ukuthi kukhona inkinga ekhona lapha noma siphatha isibuko sisibhekise elangeni sileke senza kanje khona bazobona ukuthi khona ongahambi kahle noma siphethe impempe ingakho kuma-guide kukhona le ntambi ebala ibe nempempe eyokwenza lokho kwesinye isikhathi siye endaweni ezinomiyane ngoba suke sihamba esigangeni ungayiphatha nayo lento egcobayo ukuthi singahlushwa yini omiyane masihamba lapha bese siphatha umuntu lonke i-Pathfinder fanele iphathele i-first aid naye ayidula msho u-100 ngaphandle-ke mase izinto seyikhuphukile wonke umntwana fanele abe ne-first aid yakhe yezinto ey'ncane omunye uzothi uyahamba huzuke omunye aqwejwe ucingo usiyakwazi ukuthi akhiphe la athole into ezogeza isilonda agcobise bese yabhandisha uma ngabe ekuseduze-ke ilida-ke bese beyamsiza-ke lo mntwana bese phatha in futhi ama-sunglasses sengwalandile nalokho okugcobisa umlomo ngoba njengoba uhamba abanye bahambe bekhotha umlomo uzugazuka umlomo uphatha i-lip balm phatha ne-toilet paper ngoba nokuhamba uzothola ukuthi nature is calling siyazi-ke mangabe i-nature is calling faneke senze njani siyahamba lapha ya senza kanjalo-ke ne-toilet paper sesiyajabula manje sesiphatha ngisho nama-sanitizer sesiyawafaka lapha esikhwameni uhamba nawo bese siphatha ini ama-snacks bavalana they are very critical abanye baphatha ama-sweet ngoba ama-sweet anika i-energy i-peanut butter omunye ayiphathela isendwichanyana omunye ayiphathela amakhekhe kodwa konke lokho sizokuchaza kahle mase sihamba ukuthi bazali baphatheleni lokhu nalokhu sonithumelela nibathengele abantwana ngoba sizoba sihamba ne-system yethu iyasebenza i-metabolism is fast iyagaya uyahamba umntwana usekhathele kodwa faneleke ekhipha emgodlagodleni nakhona ubeke eduzane khona ovela afaka isandla adle afaka isandla adle sibe siyahamba njalo bese phatha i-plastic bag ukuthi wonke udodi wakhe owenzekile entabeni noma mhlawumbe uzothi uyafika entabeni abantu kade beshiya amaphepha wena njenge-Pathfinder usuwenze njani usuyaqoqa ufaka khona bese uphatha necamera hayi-ke siyabonga ngoba sesinama-cell onke you don't touch anything but you take photos you don't interfere with the nature masufika uyashutha konke lokhu kuyoba i-memories yakho ukuthi ngelinye ilanga nkosami sake sahamba for i-hiking bese siphatha nalokhu kuthiwa ama-binoculars okwazi ukubuka ukuthi njengamanje injani le ndawo esiyakuyintaba especially masihamba a long hiking ama-binoculars anjani are very important then-ke nokugqoka nkosami abantwana ngingabagqokisa amateki amateki ayabawisa ngoba lapha khona namatshanyana lamancane athola umntwana athi uyanyathela ngeteki and iteki is very uncomfortable especially uma izohamba ematsheni nanka ama-hiking boots lana-ke ama-hiking boots niyabona lapha adalela ukuhamba ematsheni kwitha etshanini nakuyo yonke indawo embi they are very comfortable futhi siyabacela bazali ungamthengeli umntwana i-hiking book namhlanje kusasa usiyayigqoka ngoba lo mntwana izomqina bese imenzela ama-blisters. Siyahamba entabeni umntwana usiyakhala sekufanele yonke inkambo yaka-Israyeli ime ngoba umntwana wakabani usephuculwa zicathulo. Kulungile-ke usiyoyifaka amasokisi abe igqinsi lapha phambili amasokisi. Khona umntwana ozothi mase sihambe endaweni ehlelayo inzwane zonke ishona phambili. Amasokisi awafaka azabe u2 futhi afaka amanye ngaphakathi afake nayi igqinsi enzela ukuthi noma enyathela inyawo ngoba nansi into ebaluleke kakhulu ukuthi ufakeni basike nezipho lapha enyaweni zibe mfishi inzipho ngoba uzolimala. Le icathulo zikhona ke kodwa uyayibona nangaphansi enesifudumele uyakwazi ke nokushintsha amasokisi ke masekushisa kakhulu. Right ke kuyenzeka kusithi sihambile mhlambe sibe nenkinga kube khona umuntu ogulayo sesiyithola sesihlele entabeni. Lokhu ke nansi light leni ikhanyiswa ilanga mawuyibeke elangeni iyagenerateka bese ke ilight sesiba nayo sesiyakhanyiseleka ke lapha esihleli khona uma mhlambe kwenza ukuthi seliyaduma entabeni sekumnyama mhlambe sesihlala sesingena phansi kwezihlahla noma phansi singena eweni konke lokhu sesiyahayikha ke nazi intambo induku ama-Pathfinder angaphatha le nduku zama-Pathfinder nibafunele uma sesihamba siphatha le nduku ezani na ezokusiza ibalance njoba sizobe sihamba sengifake loya uJolisaka wami fanele ngiwenze ukuthi ukusinda kancane khona ngizokungazi mangihamba ngithi kodwa uzongenze njani ngiqonde umgogodla wami uqonde. Lokhu ke kuyanginika isupport lezinduku izonginika isupport mangihamba lapha entabeni ngiyahamba makwehlela sengibhalansa ngayo noma ngikhuphukela futhi uthotha ngisakwazi intaba iphakeme kakhulu ngibamba zona ngikwazi ukucaca zibalekileke kodwa manje ngiyazi ukuthi ngeke sonke abazali sikhone singathatha induku phathe nobhoko ekhaya ahambe ngalo khona lizomnika isupport. Nazi induku lezi ama-Pathfinder ziyasiza njengoba seke senze i-race ye-first aid lapho sesifaka ublanket khona umntwana uselimele sesenza uhlaka umntwana sesiyamfaka sesiyambamba singama-Pathfinder siyombeka ku-base. That is very important. Induku zibaluleke kakhulu. Right ku-preferable kuye kube kuhle ukuthi uma siya kwi-hiking sihambe ekuseni i-weather siyayazi indawo siyayazi siyabuza futhi ngenhlanhla sesikwenzile ke lokho zivamise ukuhamba ekuseni uthothe ekuseni umoya usabanda yingakho sesiphathe ama-jacket ekuzothi masesiza ukuthi seyashisa sesiwabophela ekhalweni ngoba ngeke sime phela leke sihlohla koJolisaka usulibopha kahle ekhalweni sesiyahamba ke. So njoba ngishilo ukuthi inyawo sayinekele nendawo ukuthi uma sesihamba kwi-wilderness siyayibheka i-safety ngoba kakhulu into evamise ukuhlangabezana nayo inyoka nama-spiders nama-ivy dangerous ivy zonke lezo hlahla sithole nama-bloom fanele i-nature sihloniphe enemasihamba lapha awudabu lapho sihamba ngokulandelana kube khona i-leader alandela ama-Pathfinder kube khona i-leader kuba ama-Pathfinder njengoba ngishilo bese kuthi-ke awo-director abanye basale emuva bezobona ukuthi ayikho ingane esalayo kungaze kusale ingane njengoba ngithi asihambi kanje njengekhwaya kodwa sihamba ngokulandelana senzele ukuthi uma kwenzeka endleleni mhlambe nansi eqhamuka inyoka usubona inyoka emgwaqeni fanele labantwana abasemuva ungabathusi isilwane siyabaleka mhlambe izothi ngasibona mhlambe ibaleke wena bese uyabadlulisa ngoba once wabatshela ukuthi nansi inyoka bazophenika bashone etshanini bayithele phezulu kwayinyoka bese siba nenkinga ke lapha phezulu isilimali ingane. Amanzi very important konke lokho mase sihamba ke bantakwethu ayikho into emnandi njenge-hiking i-hiking eyethu sonke kodwa ama-adventurers yona masebenzisa i-hiking sibenzisa i-hiking encane bese kube nama-golden rules for hiking icathulo ezi-right njengoba ngishilo ukuthi awuphathi upaca awuphathi icathulo zokulala awuphathi icathulo zasesikolweni awuphathi ama-high heels, awuphathi ini, kodwa sifuna ama-boots, ngoba lapha sisentabeni, ngoba kuba kuya ngathi ngabe lento mhlambe siyilungiselele ngesikhathi, kodwa funa noma-ke kuyiteki, kodwa leli elikwaziyo ukubamba-ke ngaphansi. Ne-weather siyigqokele appropriate, singathi kushisa ugqishe kakhulu usuyafika lapha usuyaquleka. Fanele kubheke i-clothing ukuthi okay, uma kwenzeka sekubanda nakhe ngigqokayo, uma kwenzeka sekushisa nakhe ngizogqoka. Uphatha ama-snacks, uphatha amanzi, i-compass, i-first aid nama-sunglasses, bese kufika ey'ntweni-ke ongazenzi. Uma siyolokhuzana ugqoka izinto ezi-appropriate. Awuthinti ihlahla usuyahlephula usuthi hayi nanka ama-bloom sengizowaphatha nama-plants, okwakho ukwenze njani uyawashutha usho ukuthi ngiwatholile lapha. Masihamba futhi lapha simemesi, asibanga ngoba iy'lwane azizwani nomsindo. Lokhu wabanga umsindo iy'lwane zosuke zenze njani zidisturbeke, siyithole sesenze njani sezizosihlasela. Sikhulumela phansi, akekho ukuhleka lapha, no. Okunye njengoba ngisho ukuthi you don't make noise, asithi masihamba sihambe sishiya amaphepha, sihambe silahla amaphepha, sihambe asikwenzi lokho. Sihamba emzileni, ungahambe entweni obona ukuthi le ntaba ngeke uyicaca, sesiyakuthola wena usulapha, asakwazi ukwehlisa njalo. Fanele futhi masihamba sihambeni ngani ngokulalelana, sivumelane nangepace. Mina ngeke ngithi ngingaka bese kuthiwa ngizogijima njenge-Pathfinder, kodwa sovumelana ukuthi alright masiqala i-hiking yethu ngo-6, mhlambe njengoba sohamba u-10 kilometers, mhlambe soyiqeda ngobani, mhlambe ngo-11, and siyabhekana sonke ukuthi sifike senze njani siphephile. Imnandi hiking, yabona i-hiking hamba nomuntu ongamthandi, uzoyiza i-hiking imnandi kanjani, ngoba uma nihayika niba nobunzima enibtholayo, nijika senisupportana. I-support is very crucial. Engisho khona ukuthi bafethu, I can't wait, sengijahe kabi i-hiking, and into ekuthiwa fanele siyenze on quarterly basis. Siyabiza nama-senior citizen, siyababiza omama, siyababiza nobaba, na wonke umuntu. Siyacela ukuthi asihambeni sonke sosupportana abantwana bethu, babone ukuthi i-hiking, ukubona i-nature kumnandi kanjani. Cishe ngathi sengiqedile-ke bazalwane, sathi inkosi ngasibusisa, ngicela sivala amehlo. Kodwa ngaphandle ukuthi sivala amehlo, wonke umntwana uzobe efaka isikhafu, wonke umuntu kulungile ungagqoka okugqokayo, asisifake iskate, asifake ingubo, asilifake ibhluku ilokuzana iskate eside. Wonke umuntu ufaka ibhluko, ngoba senzela noma usuwa lapha ube comfortable. Wonke umuntu ngicela isikhafu zama-Pathfinder o-master guide bayifake iy'khafu zabo, ngoba iyona ndlela esizo-identifyeka ngakhona. And lesikhafu siyokusiza futhi noma kuthiwa usubhinyikile, ube ne-sprain, sesiyasithatha sesiyasisebenzisa ukuthi kube mnandi ukuhamba. Sathi uNkulunkulu angasibusisa-ke lapho sibhekene khona ukuthi siyobe siyohayika, sekade ne-weather ingasizwela, libe kahle ilanga ngomusa kaNkulunkulu. Amen. Baba othandekayo, siyabonga ukusipha Nkosi yami uJesu, wasipha ibandla. Nanka ama-activities abantwana bethu Nkosi, sizophuma nabo ngoba noMoses wathi sophuma nako konke okwethu nabantwana bethu nabadala bethu. Nakho-ke sophuma nabantwana bethu siyohayika, sicela wena Jesu ube phakathi kwethu, uxoshe ney'lwane ezingadala Nkosi yami isiphithiphithi lapha entabeni, kodwa sihambe sibuye sijabule ngendlela eyisimangaliso. Sibusiseke Nkosi kuwo wonke ama-arrangement, sibonga nebandla lisixhasile ngakho konke kuze kube phakade. Amen.
There's a little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. There's a little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. There's a little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Yes, there's a little light of mine,